roll with your substance. Sis, you know we on a mission, no games. Help each other get over some things. Real strength bring change. Cause we've been through the rain.
Now it's time to shine like bling. Let's talk about life skills.
We building up our quality,
The right wills.
we rolling out of poverty.
Love heals.
So we become the prodigy of how a sistership could be a really hot commodity. Stand together, we united, hold hands. Support each other's dreams and our plans, doing everything we can.
Come on. Just to show we understand the power of a
friendship, family.
live life on purpose.
Together we can learn it. Yeah, let's talk.
We don't want to see her and be here for each other, no matter the color. Networking, that's for sure and for certain. Yeah, we on a sistership. Come with us, we on a sistership. Yeah, we on a sistership. Roll with us, we on a sistership.
With my sisters, we got this, sisters. You roll with me and I roll with you. With my sisters, we got this, sisters. You roll with me and I roll with you.
Sistership, we got this. Now come on, let's talk about it.
Sistership, we got this. Now come on, let's talk about it.
Let's talk about this, talk about that, talk about faith, talk about facts, let's talk about this, let's talk about this, let's talk about, talk about. We on the sistership. We on the sistership. Woo! We on a sistership today, y'all. Hello, everybody. This is your girl, Sapphire, right here on the Sistahship Network on Gynesis Radio. What an amazing Sunday today. It's nice and warm out. We're not expecting any snow anytime soon.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Beautiful day. Beautiful day.
And
It is chilly.
It looks like we're gonna have a good day for
The vendor event. So just so everybody knows, we'll just quickly say this. We have a vendor event October 23rd at We Share Corp in East Stroudsburg. We do have a couple spots open. So reach out to Tiffany Coker or myself, your girl Sapphire, for the vendor event. If you are a vendor and looking to vend that day, the weather seems like it's going to be nice. So come on in. And if you are someone who's looking to buy something for the holidays, please come out.
Love up on a business.
Love up on a business. That's right. We know there's some supply chain issues. There's all this frenzy about gift buying, blah, 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 for the holidays. Guess what? Buy local. Come to the vendor event, buy local, love up on an entrepreneur, someone who's trying to get ahead and doing their own thing. Love up on an entrepreneur. Come out to 746 Milford Road in East Stroudsburg, and
it's from 11 a.m.
11 to 3. 11 to 3. So just to want to say today, this is a very, I want to say it's a sensitive topic. Because it's hard to talk about things that we are going through and the environment we're living in or what we've dealt with in our life from a trauma perspective or people in our lives that are affected by this. But this show is about arrested development. So I'm just going to quickly introduce our panel because I love the fact that we have also some representation from Gynesis Radio coming in here. So with that said, I'm going to quickly say hello to Lady Wisdom.
Hello, good afternoon.
She is going to be dropping some nuggets today, y'all. So just saying, Lady Wisdom always comes with some wisdom up in here, and that's why we call her Lady Wisdom, and we love you from the Sistahship. Our girl, Tiffany Co. Bling. She is the head of all things the Sistahship. I know. Look, we got her up in here. We told her, come on, you coming in here. We gonna talk about this, right? We talk about this and that.
This is actually not my segment today, but I'm sitting for a little bit.
Okay. Because we need to get it together here. I'm also gonna say thank you, Terry Pickering from Gynesis Radio. He is also here with us today. How you doing today?
And that what Lurch said? I just gave you my Lurch interpretation. So
look, some of us had a long night. That's all we gonna say. We had a long night.
I was in bed at 8 o'clock.
I was hanging out with cousin It.
Cousin, he was hanging out with a whole bunch of cousin It's. That's all we gonna say. But when we talk about arrested development, we'll actually have some other guests joining us today as well because it's a very broad topic, right?
So very touchy.
It's
so if you
touchy.
get your toes stepped on,
Don't get upset. Just say ouch.
Mm-hmm. It's absolutely a touchy subject. Some of us don't even understand that we are in arrested development.
Right.
And I want to say this, do not, and you're right, Lady Wisdom, please do not take offense. It's something that we need to deal with. It is something that unless we know we have a problem, we can't figure out how we solve for it. Whatever the case may be on how we manage through it. But when we talk about arrested development, what I want to do is, I think we want to focus more on the emotional, psychological aspect, because arrested development can be physical or mental disorders. And honestly, from, we're not all well skilled and I know you have some background in psychology
We
studies.
are not claiming to be psychologists
Exactly.
or psychiatrists.
Mhm.
We are basically touching on a subject that we have to deal with every day.
Right.
In a manner and the people that we deal with each day. So let's put that out there.
Yep.
So those of you who want to talk about who do they think they are, we people that are experiencing it, have experienced it. We live each day amongst people that are walking in arrested development, amongst other issues, but this is the topic that we're touching today.
Right. So a couple things. I mean, from an arrested development standpoint, there's lack of intelligence. There's being transported to a time and space of potentially being stuck in some type of childhood environment. There's stuck in an emotional level of development from childhood based on experiences experiences that you've had in your life. And in those, there's it's we don't want to focus on the physical or mental development state. It's again being transported or stuck in an environment from an emotional standpoint. There could be traumas that you have gone through that stunts your growth. From that perspective, your growth process into adolescence years. It can come from addictions. It can come from, some type of greed or immaturity, fear, blame, shame, resentment. There's so many things that you can manage through when it comes to arrested development from an emotional state. So, let's talk about, again, it's an emotional level. Some of us have negative beliefs about ourselves. If you've ever been in a position where you said to yourself, I'm not worthy, I'm not, I'm dumb, I'm not enough, because again, these come from particular things that people have told you throughout life as a child and put you in a state of emotional arrested development. These are things that you have to deal with. These are things that we want to deal with because it's important to talk about. So with that said, Lady Wisdom, and I know we've been back and forth on this subject and how important it is to talk about it. What are your thoughts, or what are you? I guess let's talk about how we individually describe arrested development from our experience or exposure.
Well, when you look at arrested development, it's emotionally. Is the focus that we're on today. We're talking about the emotional stunting of someone's emotional and mental growth. So what ends up happening is you have a lot of emotional immaturity that's linked to a person's growth and their development. So unfortunately, many of us have experienced arrested development or know someone that has. It can come from many forms: drug abuse, substance abuse, alcohol, domestic violence, mental or verbal abuse, sexual abuse, the responsibilities that come with dealing with divorce, the incarceration of a family member, abandonment. You could go to foster care. Those are some of the issues and places that I have seen arrested development, or people that have experienced arrested development. When you look at society today, you look at an angry bunch of people walking around with low self-esteem.
Right.
One of the symptoms for someone that is dealing with it, social media has decided their worth. They have decided that they're going to go to social media, they're going to spill their life out on there, and they're going to live on social media. And however many likes that they get is going to determine how well they consider themselves success. They consider the success in their lives. Mental illness is huge. People don't look at it as a mental illness. Immaturity is huge. You can find most people that deal with arrested development is because they've seen something, they've had to learn to deal with something. You have people that have been sexually abused and they disassociate themselves at that moment,
Right.
so that they can learn to cope. But once that trauma has hit them, they have arrested their growth at that moment. They personally haven't done it, but the person that has caused the abuse has forced it on them in their development to be stunted at that place. You have people that are living in arrested development and won't face it. You can't change what you don't acknowledge. You can't heal from something that you haven't acknowledged.
Right.
You try to hide it, you try to put it away. Relationships are affected. The way we parent is affected by arrested development. If you're immature and you don't know how to function or cope because you decided that you weren't going to get help, because in some communities, mental health is taboo. The problem with that is now you have those emotionally immature people raising emotionally immature people. And then they can't figure out why. You talk about the energy that comes with that. How many times have we heard how it's the woman's fault that she's the way she is? We have to find out what happened.
Right.
People end up the way they are because something has happened in their life. And I'm not blaming these new moms. I'm not actually even wanting to blame a parent. But the one thing I realized is that my parents couldn't give me what they didn't have. And I learned that I can't give my kids what I don't have. So for years, I've been single, and I've chose not to date in order to learn to heal fully, so that when I am blessed with a partner, I am able to give a whole me than a part of me. Because emotionally immature people that deal with arrested development have the tendency to either be narcissistic, they are poor communicators,
Right.
they are defensive, they stand in a defense mode. So you know what I tell my kids, when you become defensive, you can't hear anything that's being said. At that point you hear womp, 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 womp. And that is exactly what we do as adults. We get defensive. Just because we are aged, adult age, doesn't mean that we are emotionally adults.
It's interesting you say that, because there are triggers, that sometimes put us in a state of arrested development, like you stated. And from an emotional state, I agree. I think we need to get out of a position of pointing fingers or stating there's a reason, someone, you're doing this because that's just who you are. No, there's reasons for that, that we end up in those stages, right? Based on our experiences through life. Just quickly before we kind of move on, because I want to also get Terry and Tiffany. Terry, I'd like you to tell us what you feel arrested development is, or what you've seen, or how you describe arrested development from your perspective.
Yeah. Arrested development to me starts in the home. I think bad parenting starts arrested development. That's my opinion. I think that if you don't have good, solid, strong, positive role models, you're left to your own devices, and you're left to pop culture and your social circle to raise you. And if they don't have the information and knowledge to guide you in the right direction, that's the beginning of your arrested development. And that's just my opinion.
So you say, and I can see where that comes from as well, but I guess then the question is, does that, we say bad parenting, but I also feel that, again, you can't give what you don't know.
Well, you know what? Let me
You know?
let me rephrase that. I'm a back up from
Okay.
bad parenting. I'm not bad parenting. I'm gonna say the overworked parenting.
Mm.
Not enough time spent at home raising the children is cause and effect to create arrested development. Because you know what? Like, for instance, my dad worked all the time, but he made time to spend time with me to help develop me, to make me who I am as a man today, right? So sometimes parents don't have the time or don't carve out that time to spend with their children to help them get past different things. Like, for instance, social ills, right? Nowadays the kids have to worry about gangs, right? Well, if there's nobody to tell you why a gang isn't a good idea, right? You can get caught up into gang life, and therein lies arrested development. And again, it could go in many directions.
It's a level of maturity. Because we talk about that. Arrested development is also a level of maturity, right? You're immature in aspects of your life that get you stuck still in that childhood mentality. So, to your point, I think, the point of parenting, and, we're challenged in this day and age today. I mean, parents have to work to make a living, right? They're not going to always be there 24/7 for their children. So there's a potential for them not to learn from their parents, but to learn from others.
Yeah.
So that can create, and again, as a responsibility of a parent, we have to also be accountable to ensure that we're not allowing other figures to impact our children negatively. Exactly.
But you have some homes where children are not necessarily always raised in a ideal mom-dad household.
Right, absolutely not.
So you have children that are raised, sometimes they're in their grandparents' house, or their aunts, or their uncle's house, and they have to be raised by another family.
Is that not part of the village?
It's a part of the village, but somehow the village has gotten lost because some of those parents that now, though they are some households are overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Okay. So like if you have 8 kids and then your sibling suffers from maybe a loss of life or substance abuse or something to that effect, you end up taking on the responsibility of maybe her 3 kids, and you don't want them to find their way in the system. Children that have been in foster care, I promise you, a lot of them are suffering from arrested development. I don't call it bad parenting. I call it not giving what you don't really know you have.
Right.
You have some parents that have to work 2 and 3 jobs to make ends meet.
My parents
There was a former latchkey kid that learned responsibility.
I don't agree with that, right?
It's not a matter of whether it's a fact. It's a fact that there were households that had latchkey children.
But you said the parents had to work 2 and 3 jobs.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it depends on the household and their skill manner. You have some people that don't have no skills.
My mother didn't work.
Your mom was a housewife. That was work. You don't see it in the
That's
same
a job,
manner because
Terry.
she wasn't getting financially compensated for
Yeah.
it. But nevertheless, she took care of everything else that pertained to that house. Your dad physically went out. He physically earned the money, but it was their money. While your mother stayed at home, she took care of the bills. She took care of the cleaning, the cooking, and taking care of each one of you. That is a job. That if you don't know that's a job, then when you get a wife, that's not what you're expecting from your wife. Because to say that is nothing, she didn't have to work. She didn't financially have to go out and get a job. but she had work all the same. Now, you have those.
Well, she worked her own hours then. Jesus.
She worked her own hours, but she had to take care of the household. So your family, you weren't Arrested Development because your mom was there all the time.
But
Am I
you,
correct?
but you can always suffer from Arrested
Yes, you can.
Development
Even
from
being
a household with a mom at home. And
Right,
at home
absolutely.
mom doesn't mean that she doesn't work. Financially, she might not be able to work. If you have 3 or 4 kids, putting them in daycare is bona fide nonsense. Because daycare for one child right now, let's talk about one, you're spending anywhere between $10,000
It's a mortgage.
and $15,000 a year for that child to be in daycare.
It could be a mortgage.
So if
for
you
people.
got 2 kids in daycare, you're talking about close to $25,000 for them 2 children to be in daycare. So thank God, let's all thank the housewives that are home and they are taking their responsibility serious and they are participating. Now, do I agree that all people do that? Nope.
No.
Absolutely not. But again, I also say you can't get what somebody doesn't have because they may be suffering. Now, what they do is they take some people that refuse to get help, has a chaotic lifestyle, and to them, it's normal. And so because they don't want to get help, when their child is suffering from something, they don't get that child help either.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So it became normal. So you could go into a household where mom may have been sexually abused as a child, and then when it happens to the child, it is said, oh, what happened to me? You'll be all right. Versus getting that child the help that they need. And then you want to know why that child is hot in their pants. And it can be male or female. So the average person that deals with Arrested Development, look at society. If you actually look at some of the junk that's on TV, some of these reality shows like these boot camps and stuff, whenever they're dealing with those that are in the boot camps, celebrities, you always find that they wild, they combative, they want to fight because something happened to them in their childhood and they decided that they're not going to let it happen to them again. That's Arrested Development. You get to a place that you decide, I'm not going to let that happen to me again. I'm going to protect myself. But in it, you don't get no healing. You don't get no help. You still walk around, as someone says to me all the time, in a fight or flight mentality. That is not a healthy mentality.
No, and it goes back to those triggers, right? So as an adult, there are certain things that trigger you from your past that were unresolved. Unresolved childhood, development tasks, things of that nature that leave you in that immature emotional state. That is, to your point, the Arrested Development. And I want to go back to that because I want to go back to the whole parenting thing. So I think that there is, and to a certain degree, Terry, I agree that, leaving children to a society to raise them or teach them things could put them in that state of mind of immaturity and, getting into gangs or getting into trouble, whatever the case may be. Some can come out of that. Some of it is also stemmed from the parent being in a position of Arrested Development themselves, and have not dealt with it. And I think this is where I think the healing and identifying where you have a potential opportunity versus the children. Children only grow and learn from others. So we can't always say that they're, it's just, bad, the bad kids, come from, and again, it goes back to not saying bad parenting. It's about things that you yourself as a parent don't realize within yourself where you are from a state of emotional maturity that is now spilling out to your children as well.
I do agree with that because you can have some parents who, it's not bad parenting, but there comes a point where the child decides to make their own decision and how they grow. So you can guide them to a certain extent and you can tell them all the right ways, but at a certain point, they're going to make the decisions that they're making. So it's not always the bad parenting that causes arrested development, but it's also the outside entities that kid has to meet.
Influences.
And the influences when they're in school, when they're watching social media. And you were talking about the boot camp. I think I watched boot camp relationships or relationship boot camp, and I said, does this really help? Does it really help?
It depends on. First of all, let's be clear. Anybody that deals with arrested development, we are walking around in a society full of the walking wounded.
Oh, absolutely.
Majority of the people that are walking around, not all, but majority of the people are walking wounded. They have gotten hurt some way, shape, or form. Something to some people, such as divorce, they don't realize how their child or children are affected by divorce. You know who gets affected even harder? And then they actually in a state of adulthood, and they start acting out really bad, and they actually going straight, and then they find out their parents are not together, and they somehow they fall off because somewhere their whole world was twisted, turned, and upside down. All the security that they might have felt, always knowing that their mom and dad they had each other. Now they have to be concerned for either the mom or the dad. Now they got to be concerned of why it didn't work. You got some people that blame themselves and say, "What did I do? How did that happen to me?"
You mean the child blame themselves?
You got a lot of children that will blame themselves when their parents divorce. And because of that, you have to be mindful. People say, well, I hear how some parents talk to their children and have full-fledged conversations about things they just should not have. You have put adult responsibility that you as an adult can't handle, but you put it on a kid, and then want to know why they walking around all messed up.
And don't get it twisted. Trying to mature your child sooner than they're able to get there mentally and emotionally, you're actually doing more disservice to them than you are doing a service to them.
And I totally agree. And I'm gonna put myself in that. I went through a separation, and I was with someone for 13, 14 years, and I have a daughter who she's in that kind of a situation where she's told certain information that maybe she shouldn't hear. So she battles, whether or not she should, okay, should I go here or should I go there? And I'm like, why are you giving her that information? She's not old enough to understand it. And so her mentality becomes defensive when you're talking to her because of what she's hearing from from the individual.
Right.
So I don't always put my business out there, but to understand it, yeah, I can totally agree with what you're saying because I see it in one of my kids where they're being told certain information that should only be adult information, but then you have the other parent trying to battle what is being told on the other side. Arrested development.
I don't know if they're trying to battle it or they're trying to manipulate the situation.
Yeah.
That's a difference. So when they're trying to manipulate a situation, it's because they want it to come out in their favor. Right? That's the definition of manipulation, right? So,
well, but sometimes it might not be that. They might just be trying to open up the lines of communication with their children that they're not in the household with.
Well, you cannot give certain kind of communication with your children. I had separated and then I became divorced. And in that, my goal was not to discuss my man-woman relationship with my children or discuss what I was feeling with them. I didn't always know how to feel what I had to feel, but I did not want to give that to my kids.
That's a burden on them.
I could not understand certain things. There's no way I could have expected them to. But I also had to understand that when that part happened in my life, it didn't just happen to me, it happened to them as well. We deal with consequences of each of our choices. We may not like the consequences of them, but it's a choice that we've made, right? And in the process of making choices and dealing with the consequences of it, we've chose certain people to be in our lives. We certain men, certain women to be in our lives, and whether you are in a male-female or a same-sex relationship, it's still a choice to be with that particular person.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't ever want my children to ever feel that they had to question my choices now,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So when I separated and I got divorced, I decided that the one thing I wouldn't do is badmouth my ex.
Mm-hmm.
His relationship with his children is his relationship with his children. Those are individual relationships. They separate from his relationship with me. And the one thing I told him, you let no one, not any woman, come into your life and help you destroy your relationship with your children. Not even me. Your relationship with your children has to be individual.
Oh, we got a call.
Got a call.
Hold on, I'm gonna take that call. I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna take it. Just hold on a second. Just hold on. Just hold on.
In the meanwhile, the number to call in is 888.
There we go. Caller, you on the line.
Caller, you on the line? This is the Sistahship.
What's good, man?
What's good? What's up, what's going on?
And hey, man, we stuck in traffic on, I think it's a car accident up the road.
Well, that's all right.
Traffic, I'm just listening.
That's all right. You live, so tell us your thoughts about Arrested Development since you won.
Like, I had to look it up,
Mm-hmm.
like the definition to get it better. First, I thought y'all were talking about the rap group. I was like,
You know, I should have done that in the beginning. Say this is not the show and this is not the group. Go ahead.
well, shout out to the sisterhood. Shout out to the goddesses that's on the panel. That's what I want to say first.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate
And
you.
I appreciate y'all having me. I wish I was there. I take a different take all the time on these like things like this kind of.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I'm hearing about the children. I'm hearing about the contracts, the divorce, and marriage, and these are all things that are outside of us for real. And then I'm hearing about feelings. All of these things, I think it starts internally with the individual. We search outside ourselves for the answers, and all of the answers are within us. I got a couple of guys that is building with me because I have a couple of companies going on right now, and I have them going through this course that I went through, a neuroscience course, and it's just amazing the simplest things that this doctor is talking about. Like he's talking about the brain.
Right.
I didn't know that it was a difference between the brain and the mind. You know what I mean? And it was like, wow, well, the mind is the brain in action. So when that hit me, it was like shocking. Then he talks about thought, feeling, and emotion. The difference between feeling and emotion. I didn't know that. And how the body reacts to these things. We've all been traumatized, so we all under arrested development. Before we came out the womb, I read a book.
I'm not.
I know we all sort of.
The fact that you said you're not, you definitely are.
You definitely are, brother.
he gonna challenge you.
I plead the fifth.
If you're united, I don't want to challenge TV, but you definitely are, brother.
Okay.
You definitely are.
All right.
But check it, right? All right, so we all saw this show. I was telling Roy about this the other day. We all saw this commercial about Dianetics, L. Ron Hubbard.
Yeah.
And the whole Scientology situation.
Yes.
Well, I studied Scientology. I didn't join it. It felt like a cult situation.
Yep.
But I studied it. Some of the things that spoke on, like the child being in the womb. Whatever the mother is feeling at that time, that's what the child is going through. Being under, being sedated in any way, like you go to the doctor, you take on the energy of what's ever going on in that room. When you're dealing with feelings, I heard someone say, I didn't want to give my children those feelings. Well, not giving them the feelings is still giving them the feelings because it's a vibration. Feeling is a vibration. It's a frequency.
Yeah.
So when you speak, even when you speak to them, that feeling is still there. It may not be on the surface and identified, but the feeling is still there because it's a vibration.
Mm.
Thought is a vibration. When I said internally, I'm talking about like dealing with your chakras. You know, we're not taught how to meditate. We're not taught what that actually is. We're not taught to like sit still the body, the mind will follow. Understanding that there's 7 channels within our body, and each and every one of them has affirmations and a structure to who we are as individuals and as a collective. They have us scattered. You know, we all know the Tower of Babel. They have us scattered. They have us colonialized. So we're definitely all under arrested development. We're from New York City, PP, capitalistic society.
Mm.
We are the head of being capitalist. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So we have their ideas. We have this idea. You know, I try to stay away from them and the days, and you know, they're doing us wrong because that's keeping us within a paradigm.
Right.
You know, when we do these histories and we keep going over these same situations, I think it's a distraction and we're avoiding self.
So what you're saying is we need to be a part of some sort of a paradigm shift to get past arrested development.
We need to go within ourselves. We
Yeah.
need to stop thinking that outside ourselves dealing with matter and start dealing with the energy that's where you know when they say surrender yourself to God, well surrender yourself to self because you're made in the image of God. We get confused with that word God a lot. God is the name given to the principles of order within the universe. Is the name given. You know, we are all little universes. That's what we all know that. We know that because of, you know, Google and, you know, whatever kind of research we start.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know anything. But take it into out and apply it upon self, you know, that's what we need to do. We need to go within inside self and understand how self operates.
Yeah.
And a lot of that we surrender to self. We just go inside ourselves. And really I think meditation is a great thing. You know, anything where you're focused on something that's internal, the answers will come to you. You know, that's where the law of attraction is not something that you gain. It's like gravity.
Yeah.
You know, it is. It is. You know what I mean?
So
I have a question for you.
Arrested development, we can hold on for a minute. We can talk about all of those, what's happening in the experience. And that's just emotional. That's the physical side of things. We need to get on the spiritual and the mental side of things and deal with it internally. Because that's where the answers are going to come from. We can talk all day about how this is and what we think is why and what we did now experience with it. But we have to deal with the healing side and say, well, what are we going to do to change this? And these are things that we can utilize to change this by going inside ourselves.
But you're talking about the adult selves that we are now, right? Am I correct?
Well,
because most children at the age of 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 don't know that.
The frequency still is gonna exist. It's like feng shui in the home. If you create the environment, our personalities create our reality. Our personalities create our reality and our environment. So if we feng shui, you know, the kids, I mean, we adapt. It's like I told Russ, when we were kids, we would get in the pool and they'd say, hey, let's make a whirlpool. And everybody started walking in this direction. And I was the kid that would stop walking.
We got a call.
But I would still be pulled in that direction.
We got a call.
Hold on.
Hold on. We got another call
Hold
coming in.
on,
Give us
hold on.
1 minute. Hello, this is Sistahship. Who do we have?
Hello.
Hello, caller. Turn your radio down.
Oh, you have Nabi on the phone. Hey, what's up?
What's up, Nabi? What's going on, bro?
I'm okay.
Gotta turn the radio down.
Turn your radio down in the background.
There's no radio on.
Is your computer on or something? Because we're picking up some background. We hit the show in the background.
There's nothing wrong in the household.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, go ahead. What's going on, Abby?
Okay. I'm listening, you know, to the discussion. And it's kind of throwing me because all these scientific terms about what's going on with our young children, and basically we don't take it back to the grassroots. That when we were children, we had a certain type of moral issues or moral lifestyle that we live by. You know, the black family, if you want to say the black family, had a mother and a father inside the household with them. You know, or we had the grandparents, or we had stories that dictated how we conducted ourselves inside and outside of the household. Those things are gone. You know, our children do not have any moral fiber to even look back on, to give them any structure to move forward with. And then we get into all these terminologies of metaphysics, and you got to do this, and you got to do that, and scientific this, and all this, that. And basically, we're not listening to each other. You know, we're just basically not listening to each other and not teaching each other as a whole.
Definitely.
You know, and it's destroying our children. I think that we have young parents, we have young children that at a certain age that they're able to get in front of a camera and work. You know, and actually take it to a certain extent. It really is, you know.
Absolutely.
I'm not homophobic. I'm saying it correctly.
Oh,
But I'm not against the LGBT anything like that. You know, okay. But even when I look at the young males today, their whole outer look is feminine. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with feminism or anything like that, but I would look out the street and I see young guys walking around with purses with their pants hanging down. And, you know, it's just, and it's the destruction of the family, you know. And I keep hearing all these terms and all these but basically that's exactly what it is. I mean, how many years do we continue to do this? Same thing, blaming, pointing the finger, anything like that, instead of researching, like taking a look at, you know what? Back in the 40s and 50s, there was a structure there. I think my age of people, the 60s, the babies born in the 60s, was the beginning of the destruction of the family as whole. We don't even talk family anymore. You know, grandma's invisible. Grandpa's invisible these days. You know, I mean, years ago, there was a day where it could have been a Sunday, where the family actually sat down as a family and ate dinner. This wasn't strange to anyone. You know, but it's strange today. It's almost non-existent. You know.
Well, you got some of the issue with that is because some of the grandparents are not much older than the parents.
Exactly.
Well, I think also there's also, I mean, when we talk about the 50s and the 60s, and you know, even with the movement when it came to women's rights and working, and you know, women having to work as well because of you know, now your 2-parent homes are becoming, we got to work, right? You know, and help support. I do agree that the family structure has been fractured. You know, my husband and I speak about that all the time. I remember growing up and, you know, both parents working, and Sunday dinner, we sat down together as a family. And I still do that today, every night with my husband, regardless of what we do, what time of day, you know, with work or whatever have you. We sit down, we don't have children, but we still do that because to me, that's where the sense of family and togetherness and talking about things that are going on during our days. And I feel that people connecting with their children and understanding what they're dealing with, because if we're not dealing with what the children are dealing with, if we're ignoring or, you know, just thinking that there's too much going on in our lives, we don't have the time to deal with what the children are dealing with, we are putting them in a state of arrested development because they have no outlet to move themselves out of the emotional scarring or maturing that they need to